Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Labha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Labha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajanarandana Yashodanandana Vajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashto Tarasati Shishi Mad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Ashto Tarasati Shishi Mad Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kundi Giri Govardhana Ki Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Sri Mayapur Navadvitam ki, Sri Purushottam Chetra ki, Sri Ganga Mai ki jai, Sri Jamuna Mai ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai, Harinam Sankirtana ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Picharani Nivasesa Sanyavadi Prasthata Desitami. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 33, the Rasa Dance. So which verse are we going to recite?
You can start reading from the translation, verse number 14.
And then go up to 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
24 in the chat.
Rightio. What have we got up there now? What have we got up there on the board now? What are we looking at?
All the verses are there.
We're starting with 14. Okay, we're starting with 14. We're going to chant 24. If we get there. Okay, so yeah. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmaye Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Gurum Dinatavinam. Okay, so reading from text number 14. Having attained as their intimate lover, Lord Acyuta, the exclusive consort of the goddess of fortune, the gopīs, enjoyed great pleasure. They sang his glories as he held their necks with his arms. Enhancing the beauty of the gopīs' faces were the lotus flowers behind their ears, the locks of hair decorating their cheeks, and drops of perspiration. The reverberation of their armlets and ankle bells made a loud musical sound, and their chaplets scattered. Thus the gopīs danced with the Supreme Lord in the arena of the rasa dance as swarms of bees sang in accompaniment. And for those of you who are wondering what a chaplet is, I looked it up last night. A chaplet is like a garland that goes on your head. Makes sense. Chaplet. Text number 16. In this way, Lord Krishna, the original Lord Narayana, master of the goddess of fortune, took pleasure in the company of the young women of Braj by embracing them, caressing them, and glancing lovingly at them as he smiled his broad, playful smiles. It was just as if a child were playing with his own reflection. Excuse me. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments as follows on this verse. Lord Krishna alone is the supreme absolute truth, and his potencies are unlimited. All these potencies, taking personal forms, engage Lord Krishna in his pastimes, just as the opulent manifestation of his one supreme transcendental potency manifests all the countless potencies of the Lord. So, in the rasa dance, Krishna manifests himself as many times as there are various potencies represented by the gopīs. Everything is Krishna, but by his desire, his spiritual energy, Yogamaya, manifests the gopīs. When his internal potency, Yogamaya, thus produces such pastimes for the enhancement of his transcendental emotions, it is just like a young boy playing with his own reflection. But since these pastimes are created by his spiritual potency, they are eternal and self-manifesting. It's kind of ironic. I asked that question the other day of Jayadvaita Maharaj about, playing with your reflection in the mirror. So I've been meditating on this for a little while, and then I got this purport. So I had a chance to do a little bit of research to find out what was going on here. Text number 17. Their senses, overwhelmed by the joy of having his physical association, the gopis could not prevent their hair, their dresses, and the clothes covering their breasts from becoming dishevelled. Their garlands and ornaments scattered, O hero of the Kuru dynasty. The wives of the demigods, observing Krishna's playful activities from their aeroplanes, were entranced and became agitated with lust. Indeed, even the moon and his entourage, the stars, became astonished. Expanding himself as many times as there were cowherd women to associate with, the Supreme Lord, though self-satisfied, playfully enjoyed their company. Purport. As Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out, it has already been explained that Lord Krishna is eternally free from all material desire, perfect on the platform of spiritual self-satisfaction. Text 20. Seeing that the gopis were fatigued from conjugal enjoyment, my dear king, merciful Krishna lovingly wiped their faces with his comforting hand. 21. The gopis honoured their hero with smiling glances sweetened by the beauty of their cheeks and the effulgence of their curly locks and glittering golden earrings. Overjoyed from the touch of his fingernails, they chanted the glories of his all-auspicious transcendental pastimes. Lord Krishna's garland had been crushed during his conjugal dalliance with the gopīs and coloured vermilion by the kumkum powder on their breasts. To dispel the fatigue of the gopīs, Krishna entered the water of the Jamuna, followed swiftly by bees who were singing like the best of the Gandharvas. He appeared like a lordly elephant, entering the water to relax in the company of his consorts. Indeed, the Lord had transgressed all worldly and Vedic morality, just as a powerful elephant might break the dikes in a paddy field. Text 23. My dear king, in the water, Krishna found himself being splashed on all sides by the laughing gopīs, who looked at him with love. As the demigods worshipped him by showering flowers from their aeroplanes, the self-satisfied Lord took pleasure in playing like the king of the elephants. So now text 24. Okay, let's try this. Tatascha Krishna pavane jalastala prasuna gandhanila justa diktate chachara bringa pramadaguna ganavrito yata madchud dvirada karenubhi tatascha Krishno pavane jalastala prasuna gandhanila justa diktate chachara bringa pramadagana vrito yata madachut virada karenubhi tatascha Krishno pavane jalastala prasuna gandhanila justa diktate chachara bringa pramadagana vrito yata madachut virada karenubhi
tatascha Krishno pavane jalastala
tatascha Krishno pavane jalastala prasuna gandhanila justa diktate
chachara bringa pramadagana vrito
chachara bringa pramadagana vrito
yata madachud virada karenubhi
yata madachud virada karenubhi. Tatascha Krishno pavane jalastala prasuna gandhanila justa diktate chachara bringa pramadagana vrito yata madachud virada karenubhi Prasuna Gandhani Rajustatiktate Chachara Bringa Guramadanavito Yatamabachudviradakare. Ladies? Tatascha Krishno Pavanay Jalastala Prasuna Gandhani Rajustatiktate Chachara Bringa Pramadagunavrito Yatamabachudviradakarenubi Tatacha Krishno Pavane Jalastala Prasuna Gandhani Rajustatiktate Chachara Bringa Gunavapranakito Yatamagachudviradakarenubi Krishno Pavane Jalastala Prasuna Gandhani Rajustatiktate Chachara Bringa Pramadaganavrito Yatamagachudviradakarenubi Tataha then Cha and Krishna of the river Jamuna Upavane in a small forest Jala of the water Sthala and the land Prasuna of flowers Gandha with the fragrance Anila by the wind Jushta joined Diktate the edges of the directions Chachara he passed Bringa of bees Pramada and women Gana by the groups Avritaha surrounded Yatha just as Madachut exuding a secretion from its forehead because of excitement. Dviradaha an elephant Karenupi with his she-elephants. Then the Lord strolled through a small forest on the bank of the Jamuna. This forest was filled to its limits with breezes carrying the fragrances of all the flowers growing on the land and in the water. Followed by his entourage of bees and beautiful women, Lord Krishna appeared like an intoxicated elephant with his she-elephants. Purport. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, it is implicit here that after playing in the water, Lord Krishna had his body massaged and that he then dressed himself in his favourite clothing before resuming his pastimes with the gopīs. So, let's just go back. I remember a time when we used to skip the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. We'd get to the end of the 9th canto and then, ooh, the 10th canto, ooh, too elevated. And we'd go to the 11th canto. And avoid the 10th canto. What to speak of the rasa dance. The rasa dance. And I guess this was in the wake of the Gopi Bhava Club and other phenomena. And of course Prabhupada has warned us. And the Acharyas have warned us about entering into or trying to explore these very intimate pastimes of Krishna in the wrong mood. Or following the wrong interpretations. Prabhupada himself rarely spoke on the 10th canto. And I don't think you'll find an occasion where Prabhupada publicly spoke about the rasa dance. There's no recording of Prabhupada actually discussing this and that's interesting because there are chapters in the Bhagavad-Gita where Prabhupada will return again and again and again to discuss the same topics. The 7th chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita is a good example. So the question might arise, well, if this is such an essential topic, we were hearing from Bhakti-Vedanta Swami the other day how these 5 chapters of the Bhagavatam are considered to be, of the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, are considered to be the life airs, the life force of the whole Bhagavatam. So, without the life force of the body is useless. So these are very important chapters, but we note that Srila Prabhupada didn't comment on them in public. And in fact, he tells us that these very intimate topics of the pastimes between Krishna and the gopis, and even Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan, were never publicly discussed by Lord Chaitanya either, and that Lord Chaitanya did discuss these topics, but in private, because of their confidentiality and because of the need to approach these topics with the right mood, hearing them from the right person. Prabhupada makes the comment in the Krishna book, in this chapter, that everybody's dancing with Krishna, more or less. Everybody's dancing with Krishna. But some are dancing with Krishna for Krishna's enjoyment, and some are dancing, well, they think they are Krishna. Or they're dancing with Krishna for their own enjoyment. So Prabhupada and the Acharyas go out of their way to explain what is actually happening in the rasa dance and what the relationship is between Krishna, the Ishvara, the supreme controller. What is it? Ishvara, what is it? Ekale Ishvara Krishna, Ara Sabha Britya. Krishna is the supreme controller. Everybody else is his servant. And it's interesting because Krishna here is obviously acting as the supreme controller, but also the supreme enjoyer, right? And Prabhupada makes the point very often, Anandamaya Abhyasat, we're all enjoyers. right? Because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Mama evamsa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatanaha. We're all part and parcel of Krishna. And so also, being part and parcel of Krishna, we also have an enjoying mood. It's natural. The enjoying mood is natural. But the enjoying mood needs to be subservient to the mood of service to Krishna also. Right? So, we are part and parcel of Krishna, but Krishna is the whole, and we are only just a very small, minute part. Right? And being a part of Krishna, our role is to be a servant. We also have the enjoying mood, and we see here with Krishna's in the enjoying mood. The gopis are also in the enjoying mood, but that enjoying mood of the gopis is always subservient to their desire to serve, and that their greatest pleasure ultimately is in the pleasure of Krishna. So we see here, and this is explained by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the purport that accompanies the 16th verse. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says here, Lord Krishna alone is the supreme absolute truth, and his potencies are unlimited. Right? Parasya Shakti Vividhaiva Shruyate, where Krishna has unlimited potencies. All these potencies, taking personal forms, engage Lord Krishna in his pastimes. So this is interesting. Prabhupada gives the example of a train controller, right? A train controller. And Prabhupada explains how the train controller sits in his office and he has switches and buttons and levers and so forth, and he can control everything. He knows what's going on in the entire train network. I have friends in Melbourne who work as train controllers. Right? But the interesting thing about Krishna is that yes, he's the supreme controller, but actually he doesn't have to pay attention to the board. He doesn't have to pay attention to the dials and the levers. They work automatically by themselves. What an amazing personality who allows his expansions, and in this case his energies, to control themselves. And of course, they always act for Krishna's pleasure. It's not that, they get out of control and stop behaving properly in this setting, but rather they're always engaged for Krishna's pleasure. And are manifest here, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, in their personal forms. Just as the opulent manifestation of his one supreme transcendental potency manifests all the countless potencies of the Lord, so in the rasa dance, Krishna manifests himself as many times as there are various potencies represented by the gopis. So each one of the gopis is actually an expansion of Krishna's internal potency, the internal potency through which he enjoys. Everything is Krishna. Everything is Krishna. But by his desire, his spiritual energy, Yoga Maya manifests the gopis. When his internal potency, Yogamaya, thus produces such pastimes for the enhancement of his transcendental emotions, it is just like a young boy playing with his own reflection. Right. So that stumps me, right? I was asking the other day, because I've had the experience of playing with a mirror. I guess maybe you have too. You know, if you try to touch yourself in the mirror, it's a very cold experience, right? And there's no emotion, no feeling, and practically speaking, no interaction. Right? But this is different. This is different. And it's interesting. I asked Jayadvaita Maharaj, because this is mentioned in the summary of the chapter. So I was curious to find out who wrote these summaries, who wrote the summaries of the chapters of the Bhagavatam. And so he said it was Prabhupada who did that, but he said following Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's summaries, right? And so it's interesting here that this purport comes up with the same analogy or the same example, that the gopis are much like his reflection, right? So I was meditating on this. How could the gopis be Krishna's reflection? And if we meditate on this, it's not actually not too difficult to understand. The living entity, Krishna says, is part and parcel of himself, right? So must have the qualities of Krishna, but in minute quantity. Krishna is the reservoir of all potencies, the reservoir of all pleasure. And so the internal potency, the Yogamaya principle, manifests, expands itself or herself in the form of the gopis. And because the living entity is part and parcel of Krishna, those living entities in the form of the gopis, the expansions of Krishna's internal potency, also have his qualities, his characteristics. And in relationship with Krishna, they bring out qualities of Krishna that are very unique and outstanding, astonishing, actually. Srila Prabhupada explains how this section of the rasa dance glorifies the qualities and the characteristics of the gopis and their special relationship with Krishna, their unique relationship with Krishna. It's describing here how the gopis are experiencing exchanges of rasa, lila pastimes that are not experienced by anybody else. Even the goddess of fortune. It's described how the goddess of fortune is attracted to Krishna, but even after performing austerities for thousands of years is not able to get the same association with Krishna as that of the gopis. And the same intimacy. It's described how Lakshmi is embraced by Krishna. She's held to Narayan's chest, like a hug, if you like. But the gopis are neck to neck and with arms around they're much more intimate, much closer and much more intimate exchange between the gopis and that of Lakshmi Narayan. So this section of the rasa dance is basically in appreciation and in glorification of the closeness and the affectionate dealings between Krishna and the gopis. Such was the affection of the gopis for Krishna that he's obliged to then exchange again that same closeness and appreciation for the love and affection of the gopis. Very unique. Prabhupada explains that the rasa dance is like a combination of dark clouds, thunder, lightning and snow. This is in the Krishna book. And of course, and we've got there's a couple of different perspectives going on here. There's the close-up view where there's the relationship between Krishna and the gopis and their closeness. But then there's also the vision from afar of the demigods and what they're seeing. So the vision of the demigods, and they're being bewildered also, because it's described here how the wives of the demigods are also feeling this amorous affection towards Krishna, and even the moon and the stars are stunned by this scene. But the clouds is Krishna, right? And the thunder, interestingly enough, is the kirtan. It's the gopis singing the glories of Krishna. And also it's described how all of the musical instruments are present, but not being played. They're playing themselves. Musical instruments are playing themselves. And this is creating the mood of thunder. You know, when we have an intense and deeply absorbing kirtan, right? With the mridangas playing and the wampas playing and the gongs playing, then it's thunderous. So there's the clouds, there's the thunder of the kirtan, and then the movement of the gopis is like lightning. And the perspiration of the gopis is like snow. So we're seeing in these, especially in these verses, we're seeing the interaction of Krishna with the gopis in a very intimate and intensely emotional exchange, where Krishna is reciprocating with the surrender of the gopis. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad-Gita that he will reciprocate with us according to the degree of our surrender. Yayata mam prapajjante. So we're observing here, we're witnessing in this pastime Krishna's obligation, his affection, his reciprocation and appreciation of the gopis' surrender. And the acharyas explain how the degree of intimacy that exists in these exchanges is a measure of the gopis' surrender to Krishna. So Krishna is not unappreciative of our service. In fact, in my experience, the more I hold back the unhappier I am. Despite the inconvenience, if I give more to Krishna, then, and it's a challenge. It's always a challenge to surrender, to give up everything. But the more we hold on, the less satisfied we are. The more we give to Krishna, the happier we become, and the more Krishna reciprocates. There's more risk, at least we think, or at least I think. There's more risk in giving everything to Krishna, but there's much more satisfaction when we give everything to, well, notionally what we think we own. Actually everything belongs to Krishna in any case. But the more we give, the more Krishna will reciprocate. And that's exemplified by these pastimes of the rasa dance especially, where Krishna gives himself completely to the gopis in reciprocation for their giving themselves completely to him. Okay, Hare Krishna. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
So when we're thinking about surrendering everything to Krishna, we might have ideas that, well, if I just accumulate money, I can use it in Krishna's service. Prabhupada tells a story that he was thinking that let me be successful and use that in Krishna's service. So how do we know that we're not really attached or mental speculating, thinking that by my arrangement I can become very wealthy and I can help the preaching mission in that way? And is that surrender as well?
Depends on how much money you've got. I will suggest. Yes, and what happened? Prabhupada eventually became destitute. And of course, set such a wonderful example of dedication to the order of his spiritual master for so many years, and he tried his best, better than best. Prabhupada was always putting in 110% effort to serve the order of his guru despite so many setbacks, right? So I think the answer to the question is we check with our spiritual master, or we check with our gurus, right? Vande Gurun. We have many gurus. We need to check with our guru or gurus to determine whether the course of action that we've chosen is indeed what Krishna wants us to do, right? Yes, it may be that pursuing one's career and in the process generating income that can be used in Krishna's service for preaching, right, is what Krishna wants us to do. And that will be unique for each of us individually. And for others, that may not be the correct process. And our methodology for determining that is by going to the spiritual master or to the spiritual masters, because it's common for many of us to have more than one advisor, and then getting a confirmation of what Krishna actually wants us to do from the devotees. So I guess, as I say, it depends, and how much money have you got?
Back in 67, Satsvarupa Maharaj wanted to give up his welfare work job, but Prabhupada said no.
Good example. Very good example.
What you said, it depends how much money you have. But in the case of Kolavitya Sridhar, who's earning very meager and is giving 50% for the worship of Ganga, her Supreme Lord. So Srila Rupa Goswami also says a formula, and I don't follow.
Okay. The 50% rule can be applied in a variety of ways. Right? Kalavecha is a unique example of somebody who could give 50% of what he earned on a daily basis, right? Unique. Whereas Rupa Goswami gave the accumulation of his wealth at retirement 50%, and 25% kept for emergencies. So the 50% rule has its subtleties, its nuances, right? When are we going to retire? That's a good question. Well, retirement usually means, vanaprastha sannyas, right? So that's what I'm saying. It has many nuances. It's not a cookie cutter approach. Okay, 50%. It doesn't work. And I say that to, we have a householder community. Many devotees in our community are establishing them, first generation Indian families in a modern Western city. And so they're giving 50% of their incomes unrealistic because they're establishing themselves, right? And they're all giving significant amount of funds to the temple. So, we have to be careful with the 50% rule. There are some who say at least 10%, yes. I say give what you can. You don't want to become unpopular with your friends. Especially now, interest rates are rising, mortgages are going up. But the good thing is, because people are suffering, there's more people coming to the temple, so we're getting more donations in the hundi. Right? So, yeah. Prithu Prabhu.
I would like to elaborate on the question of Panchagoda. You see, if you admire, you're thinking whatever we do is okay, truly positive is not. Then the person is admire. Right. Then he thinks whatever I do is all right. Where I have great enormous amount of money, everything is fine. Don't worry about it. So the next, of course, higher is if there has this doubt. How am I really spending everything from Krishna? Am I completely free from the slightest tint of abuse? And how can we be sure that we are 100% using everything in Krishna's service, including money, is only possible when we are on the transcendental platform, like Prabhupada. He was completely on the transcendental platform. He could say, I don't take 1 cent for myself. He was completely free from doubt. As long as there's a lingering doubt, in any case, in our devotional service, it means we are not on the perfect platform. And it means we don't know. Doubt is a symptom of illusion. So it is better to be in doubt and say, am I really questioning myself? Am I really doing everything for Krishna I could? Or do I use every penny for Krishna as I could? That's far better than being so completely safe and spending money here and there thinking that everything is for Krishna. That's very primitive or very gross way of justifying. But in the ultimate issue, only a pure devotee has this discretion, this power of this divine power of discretion to know what's what. And am I completely situated in Krishna consciousness or not? It is not a question for him, because he is on the platform. Hare Krishna.
Okay, that's a nice comment, thank you.
As you mentioned in the beginning of the class that, we were not discussing this pastimes in Bhagavatam classes. So how it started then? Why we were not discussing before, and then how it started now we are discussing?
Let's just wait for this to finish, because I couldn't work out what you said.
Why was it discussed before, and why are we discussing it now? The 10th cancer. Say it again.
Oh, okay, yeah. Why are we discussing it now, not then?
Before, why we were not discussing it?
I think because the devotees were scared. Were perhaps not scared, but just cautious. Discretion is the better part of valor. Right? These days we have the advantage of translations of the acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada's commentaries, the Krishna book. So we have a much broader range of textual and contextual experience, so we can put it together more completely and actually have something to say, right? So, and also, at least I know in Australia, many of the devotees just didn't study Prabhupada's books as seriously and as systematically as we do now. We didn't have the VIHE, for example, or the MI. We didn't have those facilities. We didn't have the range of devotional maturity in ISKCON that we have now. We have devotees who've been practicing Krishna consciousness for 50 years, right? And who have a wealth of experience plus a wealth of learning and are able to put the two together practically, right? Whereas in those days we didn't have that. So I think maturity, not that we're fully mature necessarily, but there's a greater maturity in the ISKCON experience from a philosophical and a practical level. Yeah. One more. Yes, Mataji, somebody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your class.
Hare
I have
Krishna.
one question that I know you touched upon. Jayadvaita Maharaj last time mentioned how the gopis and Krishna's desires merge, where Krishna's desires are pleasing the gopis and the gopis pleasing Krishna. So I was thinking, I know everything in this plane is a watered-down version of what happens above. So in this realm, if we have a love that's noble and selfless, and our pleasure comes from pleasing the other person, is that a way that we can even begin conceptualizing, of course in a more watered-down sense, what's happening between Krishna and the gopis?
Whoa. I don't think I'm experienced enough in these matters to say, to be honest. I think it's fair to say, Prabhupada explains that the material world is a reflection, a perverted reflection of the spiritual realm. So one of the things that we have to be careful with in studying the rasa dance is not think that these are similar or the same as the affairs of the material realm, right? So we need to be careful about equating the two, making them the same. Although there are similarities, just like when we look in the mirror, the reflection is similar. So I'd say yes, to a point, yes, but we have to be careful. Yeah, that the affairs of the mundane realm of affection and emotion can match or even come close to these, it could be a mistake. Maybe an indication, yes, but I'd suggest we have to be careful. How's that? That's a guarded response. Yeah. And yeah, we see, you know, I was in Rishikesh the other day, and we just witnessed the Ganga Puja, and there's a cookie shop there that sells apparently very good cookies. So my friends were buying some cookies, and I sat down on a seat, and there was a little cow came over. A cow, a calf, right? And then I just started patting the calf, and it was, you know, how they put their neck up, and then it just came over and put its, after I'd been stroking it for a while, it just came up and put its head in my lap, you know. And I was kind of thinking, oh, that's nice, isn't it? Reciprocation. So, you know, there are exchanges of affection. And we see that with pictures of Krishna, where Krishna's holding the calf and showing affection. The cow's showing affection to Krishna, and Krishna's showing affection to the calf. So, you know, there are experiences that we have in our day-to-day lives that echo or reflect our feelings and affections that we hope to experience in the spiritual world, at least. We get a slight glimpse. In the material world, there's also a lot of pain that goes with it, unfortunately.
The danger is always...
Let's give Prithu Prabhu the microphone.
That if we discuss these pastimes, these very intimate pastimes, the danger is always to be captured by the Sahajiya spirit.
By what?
By the Sahajiya spirit.
Yeah, Sahajiya.
There's a danger there. And we have seen many times that this is happening, that people fall into the Sahajiya trap. Which is actually covering the purity of devotional service, because if somebody is really pure, he's not affected by that. But if there's some sort of tendency there, we fall into this trap.
Yes, and that's a good point, because we're not to imitate the gopis, but we should follow in their footsteps. And that is, we should emulate, or if you like, follow their surrender. Not that closeness or intimacy. They gained that because of their high level of devotion. That's what we need to cultivate that. And you know, that was with the Gopi Bhava Club. The devotees were studying the pastimes, the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and in a mood of an immature mood, and in a mood of kind of imitation rather than following. Very dangerous. Yeah. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.